Hi, this is Dr. Otto Janke for the Empire Longevity's Longevity Live. You see that I'm actually recording this one just as we did last week. Time frames, quite frankly, have constricted my time to be live. So I'm recording some of these. This one, I think, will be a neat one for you. If you've seen this week, I posted a question about faith. Is faith necessary for longevity? And we got many responses back on that. Many people saying, absolutely yes, absolutely yes. It's absolutely a fundamental aspect. And so my question, I want to take this in a little bit deeper. So I'm bringing up a paper right here, a number of papers. I have a couple of pages in front of me, actually. And first of all, what's the definition of faith? Well, if we're going to take a look at this, I go into the Otto library. Faith, if we look at what the definition of faith is, it's the complete trust or confidence in someone or something. The definition, the example they use here on here is that this restores one's faith in politicians, which I find a interesting use of that at that time. The second definition is a strong belief in God or in the doctrines of religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. So let's take this let's take the idea of a structured religion out of it. Not that it's not important. I have been I'm 59 years old. I've been on the Roman Catholic team for 59 years. I've been through all the sacraments. My wife's been through all our sacraments. But I don't want to be logged down into the idea of a strict religion. Once again, I'm not against that by any means, but I don't want to put off people who are saying, listen, I don't necessarily have a formal religion, nor am I Catholic or Protestant or the Jewish faith. That for this doesn't matter, because there's a number of questions I have about this. I find it fascinating that people say to me that it is actually a fundamental aspect. That's 100%. It's an aspect of longevity. I consider, ironically, one of the Bibles of longevity, the Blue Zones, with Dan Beitner, and he talks about longevity specifically in here and what's the opportunity that people have. And one of the substantial aspects of them having longevity is not necessarily a religion, but definitely a faith. And we ask these questions because of this. How do we get to longevity? How do we do this? What are the aspects? Having you go to the gym every single day and do the Stairmaster or any kind of your Pilates groups is fantastic. But quite frankly, if we look at, once again, the sphere of longevity, in the sphere of longevity, if I haven't described this well enough for you, I apologize. But the sphere of longevity is this, and it came about sitting with, well, it was first described to my partner, Dr. Sean Dill. And he said, what is what's going to distinguish this from anything else? And if we look at the common, very, very common longevity sites, they talk about nutrition, they talk about exercise, and the mental emotional aspect. And that little circle right in there, that little area where those three come together, people consider that to be your longevity. I said, let's take that two-dimensional thing out here and let's just take it and spin it. And now it's no longer just two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. But let's take it into a sphere. And that sphere is, quite frankly, all the things that we do. Some of it, one of it, if we look inside the sphere and we put little circles in here, one circle is going to be your motion, not emotion, that's another one, but motion, what you do for exercise. We look at the 5 aspects of motion in Empire Longevity, the 5 aspects. One down here is going to be your rocket fuel, the foods that you intake to promote your healing, to beat cancer, prevent cancer, to keep your mind sharp, to keep your body at optimal weight. Over here is going to be the mental emotional aspects. Over here might be your finances. Over here, your friends, your education, your continued learning. And the one right there is going to be your faith or spirituality. Now, here's and by the way, what connects all of those? What connects all those? Well, you. And what really connects them is your nervous system. So we have to make sure your nervous system is optimized at all the time. Here is a very unique thing. If I was going to ask you, what's the difference between spirituality and faith? Now, faith, we're going to use the definition of a complete trust or confidence in someone or something, a strong belief in God or a being. Again, I don't want to get you wrapped up into an idea of a God because people think of a God in a Roman Catholic way, I do, or in your faith, your religion. And I don't want to get too logged on that because it can bog us down into where we want to go. But it's a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. While spirituality is the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. Well, I look at those definitions and I see that they aren't necessarily the same thing, but we will commonly interchange those, faith and spirituality. Again, spirituality is the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. Faith is the complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So as I go through the research I was doing on this for you previously, some of the questions I have to ask is then, if we have a complete trust or confidence in someone or something, two things come out of the top of my head is one, what is that thing or being that you have the confidence in? What is that? And number two is, what are you anticipating that your trust or confidence in that someone or something will then give back to you? And I think it's just fascinating for me because I go through this all the time. And so I'm going to use my story because it's the one I know best. But if I look at this and ask, do I use my religion, which is different than my faith? If my religion is my faith, which I'm going to use it for this, was different, but I'm going to use it as the example. Am I anticipating, am I hoping that my trust and confidence in my religion, in my being, in my God, then gives me security, gives me confidence, gives me a sense of connection? One of the things they talk about in the Blue Zones, and it comes up often and I highly recommend you read that book. Dan will be a guest on the Empire Longevity podcast coming up. But if we look at this, and one of the reasons they look at religions, by the way, the books say over and over and over again that people who are faithful, full of faith, actually live, I think the numbers are right around, here's a crazy one for you. From the Blue Zones, Beitner talks about attending faith-based services each week has been shown to add 4 to 14 years of life expectancy. I mean, you start looking back, just because I go to those things. And one of the things they talk about is, well, here's another stat for you. Americans who never attend church have 1.87 times the risk of death compared to those that attending services more than once a week. For someone who isn't 20 years old, that amounts to a 7-year difference in life expectancy. And the question they ask here is, how much does this have to do with lifestyles of those in question, and how much with actual faith? Is it because the people that go to these things take care of themselves differently? Is it because, once again, as we have seen with men, this is the studies have been done on them, men who have retired, that their life expectancy, those years after retirement, is about 5 to 7 years. And one of the reasons they look at that is because they no longer have a purpose to get up and go do something. So is one of the reasons why people who have a faith, an organized religion, are they more apt to have longevity because they have a group to belong to? A very great question for you. I mean, let's be realistic. You come to us, Empire Longevity, because first of all, we have a gang. We have a gang here. And I would love for all of you to meet each other. It's a cool group. But are you also here because once we get into this, that there's a trust and confidence that you have in us? I often think about the cowardly lion. And is it already in you? Or when the cowardly lion went to the wizard, and the wizard said, all of you, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, everything you've already had this in you. Is your faith, can you learn faith? Or do you personally generate faith? And then if we're going to use the definition that it is a trust and confidence in someone, well, then do we have that trust and confidence in ourselves? And once again, what are we trusting? What are we confiding? What do we have that confidence in? What, in whom? And what do we expect to get back from that? Is it the sense of, I have something there? I'll be straight with you in this. I may ruffle many feathers with this, but it's something that needs to be brought up. You have many people who will say, and I'm going to use the word God, and I see this often, is that God is good when things are good. When things are good, God is good. And I raised a question to someone one time. I said, when things go down, when things go south, do you ever say God is bad? And they say, no. I said, why not? And guys, I've been on the Roman Catholic train for 59 years. I may not make it to 60. He died of a lightning bolt while he was giving a talk on faith. But faith. And Beitner talks about in the blue zones, the people who live to over 100, the centenarians, is how do they get there? There's a strong positive relationship between religiosity and well-being. It appears to hold true regardless of the number of people in each spiritual community. For example, very religious Jews are a minority within their ethnic community. However, they still experience the same boost in well-being when compared to the larger group of moderately religious and non-religious Jews. It's fascinating. But once again, I don't want to add in just a specific, the Roman Catholics. The Catholics are saying, listen, I go to church, therefore I have this. My question is, what's going to happen to the people who are in their 20s and 30s who, in America, who have the Roman Catholic Church is dramatically decreased in size? What happens to them? They look at a higher power. How does this boost in longevity come about? Besides lifestyle, what medical effects does faith bring to the table? Fascinating. These questions are especially relevant because when people are sick, their spiritual beliefs are often more pronounced. You and I have seen many times on Facebook, people who say, prayers, please. And although it is very unscientific to say that, there has been times when people, and they've done experiments, And they've had people pray for people who were thousands of miles away, people you did not even know. And those people get better. I mean, it's, maybe they didn't get, it's the whole thing. They look to a higher power for support and for strength. One study showed that 70% of patients wanted their physicians to consider their spiritual needs, and 40% wanted their physicians to pray with them. The spiritual beliefs are not simply a crutch. They have been documented to help in numerous ways. Results from several studies indicate that people with strong religious and spiritual beliefs, once again, those are different though, heal faster from surgery. I'll say it again, is that people with strong religious and spiritual beliefs heal faster from surgery, are less anxious and depressed. Well, that might be because they have that confidence and trust, have lower blood pressure, once again, and cope better with chronic illnesses such as arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and spinal cord injuries. Then there must be very, very little of that in America. In the first study, Wallace and colleagues analyzed 505 obituaries published in the Des Moines Register between January and February of 2012. The second study analyzed 1,906 obituaries published online in 42 major cities across the U.S. between August 2010 and August 2011. In both studies, the researchers account for sex and marital status, as well as the number of religious social activities the people had participated in. The first study showed that religious believers lived 9.45 years longer than those who did not have a religious affiliation in their obituary. I mean, they just said, yeah, they went to church a bunch, or they went to the synagogue often. They remember. After sex and marital status had been accounted for, believers lived 6.48 years longer on average than non-believers. In the second study, the gap was 5.64 years at first, and then 3.82 years after considering the sex and marital status. What makes that so much different? Again, I bring this up because maybe I'm working through my own stuff too. But we look at this and ask, why is it that people who believe in something else there, in here, or is it actually in there? And I bring back, and I know I don't want to just be callous or shallow in my characterization of this. But once again, is it like in the Wizard of Oz? Is the great Oz says, dude, cowardly lion, you've already had that already inside you all the time. You've already had that. As the population grows older and more individuals live into advanced age, and the oldest age segment will continue to increase in size. That's us. This qualitative study analyzes data gathered using in-depth interviewing and explores the spiritual saliency for 16 centenarians. Results illustrate the importance spirituality has for older adults over the life course, particularly those in advanced age. Here's a great question for you. Does faith grow with age? Ooh, good question. Our findings indicate that spirituality is a key factor of support, an important resource in later in life, and maintains continuity over the life course for the centenarians. Additionally, spirituality serves as a critical component in the everyday lives of the participants and provides a framework for helping older adults make sense of having lived a very long life. I'm going to read that one again. Serves as a critical component in the everyday lives of the participants and provide a framework for helping older adults make sense of having lived a very long life. I'm 59, and I contemplate my next decades. And this is at the age of 59. This has come up to me more than ever has. And so I think about what I've done, and I started journaling this year. And a commonality in my own journaling is I can do so much more, and not from, this isn't more for me. It's more for my communities. My top 3 things I want to do for when I become a multimillionaire. 1, give every child in my community 10 books a year to read, because I'm a firm believer that if we want to change a community, we have to get the kids reading first. Number 2 is every kid in our community has an opportunity to have an instrument to play, because I know one of the biggest gangs I ever was in was my bands. And so there's so much that goes along with that. Number 3 has changed. I'm not sure about number 3 anymore. The findings, and so I asked the same thing. Have I lived? Did I do good? The findings reported here support the need for researchers and practitioners to consider the importance of spirituality in late life, particularly for those in their last decades. I'm hoping that's not I. So I asked that question over again. And you've said many, many times, yes, faith is absolutely, it's necessary. It's essential. I don't say necessary, but it's essential. And being that it is essential, how do we then make it stronger? If it is essential, so if you're going to put it on the same frameworks as in the sphere of longevity that we have right here, if we're going to put it along in the same sphere, along with rocket fuel, motion, finances, friendship, learning, education, Mulligan, my pet right there, all these are inside there. And faith is also, how do we stoke faith even more? How do we grow that? Do you have to give yourself, do you have to have a blind faith? Do you have to have a blind trust to move into this? I'm still working through this all myself too. At 59, I'm just opening up those pages. I might be late to the party on this one, by the way. Love to hear your answers to all these. If you do not want to post them on the page right there on our Facebook page, feel free to private message me. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I bring this up. I don't have any answers today. I'm sorry. I bring this up because this is if we think this is an essential part, then we need to talk about it much more, much more. And we will. I have some of our guests coming up in a short time who are faith and religious leaders. And I will ask them the same questions. I have to tell you that at our last symposium, which we had planned, which ended up being 86th by the vid, is one of them was going to be a priest, talk about faith. Because once again, if we think this is essential for us to get into our next best decades, to push that 90, 100 year walls and gates, then we need to talk about it. I'd love to hear from you guys. Have a great day.